Good evening, everyone. Welcome to, this is our 35th 35th Sinister Mysteries. I don't have my crib notes here in the way of my scrolling banner. There it is. And it's, I think, the 205th episode of the show. But more importantly, this is Craig and Joey's. Craig. Oh, I did it right the first time.
I know. Craig, I always screw that up. I'm like,
Joey's.
Which way? Yeah.
Sinister Mysteries. Craig, we did one, I think, in December, another president, Woodrow Wilson, and that was sort of your pet project there. And I think we both agree that what we're going to talk about tonight is increasingly important, because I'm just going to put it out there right now. I think that Barack Obama is still running this country for the people who put him in power. But I don't believe. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think it's the same way. I mean, because I don't know, we didn't have, we didn't pull clips or anything like that, but anybody can search up the clip, and you've talked about it several times between the two of us. All you got to do is just look at Barack Obama. And if I was to do a third term, well, I would prefer to do it from my own home in the basement, where I would just feed the information to somebody. And doesn't that feel like how this thing's going? That this is somebody's orchestrating this behind, because like I said, I don't care what people's politics are. We've said that from the beginning of this thing, but I'm sorry, people, the man would not, if he was in any other party, he would not have been allowed anywhere near office. News cycles would have been talking about the mental, issues. I go, all we have to do is look, the poor guy. If you want to just look at he's an old man he's having trouble walking. He's having trouble figuring out which way to go. I mean, does anybody feel confident that somebody's going to steer us through a potential World War III situation when he doesn't even know to go left or right off of a stage?
Yeah. Tanya calls it elder abuse.
It is. I mean, because literally you're looking at a guy, he's there and he's like, I don't know which way to go. And, to circle back to where we were, you see, that's how I tie that. We'll circle back, we go back to the thing with it. That's where, so when you see these policy things that coming out, like all of a sudden a tweet comes out, like, just a steady thing, that's not Joe Biden doing it. There's somebody else. And the people that are doing it are from this powerhouse, which started with Bill Clinton, went through this thing, and it came into where we're going to talk about here right after the intro is Barak Hussein Obama, who he came from, literally the title, obscurity. Nobody knew he was a community organizer to, within less than 12 years later, the president of the United States. And that's unheard of. You don't go from just nothing to all of a sudden you were the power, you were the highest office in the world.
And there's interesting relationships, there's interesting decisions along the way, and that's what we are going to unpack tonight. So we made a bold statement here. This man, why is it still important? Because he's running the country, and it's looking, I don't know, right now, very likely he's going to get another 4 years. And these 4 years are the years leading up to Agenda 30, which Craig and I are going to tackle in a couple of weeks. So this is all very, very important. So let's run the opening and then come back. What you are not going to hear about tonight, and Craig and I have been saying this, in all of the promos, live and in text and in our events and all, you are not going to hear about meth. You are not going to hear about whether Michelle is really Michelle or Michael. And you are going to hear a little bit about the birth certificate controversy, but not that he was born in a foreign country and should be. It's much more complicated than that, and Craig's got good stuff for you on that.
Yes,
Here we are. Welcome, everyone.
There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, the couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
All right. So, like I promised you, like we promised you, we are coming at you with as many facts as we could find to try to create a tapestry and not go sideways. I am going to mention Basiago and Mars just in passing, Craig.
Oh yeah, well you have to.
Yeah, only because it really links to something I think much more insidious about this guy. But anyhow, just the facts, and I'm going to quickly pass it over to Craig, who's got some really interesting stuff for you. But he was born on August 1st, 1961. Barak Hussein Obama II, born in Honolulu, was born in Honolulu, raised by his mother, Stanley Ann Dunham, and his grandparents. His father of record is a Kenyan. His father was a Kenyan economist named Barak Hussein Obama Sr., or the first. Craig, you want to talk about? You go ahead, take it. The birth certificate.
Did you want to show that picture?
I think it's great. If you have it handy, I would
okay. Yeah. While we're talking here, I'm going to bring it up here.
Yeah, please. It's very compelling.
Yeah. So what's going on is you have Barack Obama. He is in what we have here is that was one of the things that was brought up by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And this is how that started. So anybody that is like, this is the Republican smear. No, this was actually started during when they were running, him and Hillary Clinton were running against each other in the Democratic primary. The Hillary Clinton campaign was the one that started this birther movement. That's how that whole thing began. The controversy is dead in the water because whether people like it or not, Barack Obama was born to an American citizen mother. And if anybody knows the rule of law, it doesn't matter where she's at. She could be in Antarctica. She could be in Moscow, Russia. She could be in London, England. She could be in San Jose, California. It does not matter. He's an American citizen. Doesn't matter where she's at. She's born to an American mother. He's born to an American mother. That's how this happens. So what the controversy is, and I showed this to Joey, and apologize. Like I said, I might have to have you do it so I can do some typing so I can find it. I'm not finding the picture just readily. But when you look at this, where the controversy came in is when you see the birth certificate, there's discrepancies that don't work, and that's where they kind of like, okay, this has been altered. Well, I posed to Joey, the reason it's probably that it probably was altered is Barack Hussein Obama Sr., who he's credited as the father, doesn't look anything like Obama. They don't have similarities. What they do have similarities, and he was in Hawaii at the time as Barack's mother, was Frank Marshall Davis, who is a well-known, poet. So he has communist, Marxist leanings. He was involved in papers, which is exactly what his mother was into. This is why he's always had a leaning. Like when he was in college, he was always leaning towards the Marxist, the communist. These different groups. He had these leanings, and you can find it in his own words. He has it here.
Craig, I just put the link to the image in the private chat.
Oh, okay. So I'll bring it up here.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yep.
He wrote that book, right? Dreams of My Father.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to bring this up here on the tab so that way I can.
Yeah. like Maria says, parents mold the child. Craig, I was watching your show last night, and you mentioned that we were doing this tonight, and Brian said he was groomed. We're going to talk about some of the people who molded this child, who groomed this child, and they're very interesting.
Yeah. So here, he's going to bring up the picture so everybody can look here right now. Especially the way that there's a little bit of a bias because of the way they oriented the picture. I mean, it's going to naturally look that way. But when you look at some of these features, you can see the cheekbones don't match. Obama doesn't have prominent cheekbones. He doesn't have a round face. He doesn't have, the shape of the ears is different. He has, when you look at these things, skin tone, just the other features, Frank Marshall Davis looks like he could easily be his father. Well, the problem that comes in here, and this is now, so people are like, okay, so what's the big deal? Well, here you have somebody who doesn't have much of a political background, which we'll get into here shortly. And nobody is going to accept, especially going up against like John McCain, somebody who has communist Marxist ties. No, it's going to be the old McCarthyism thing. Nobody's going to accept this. This is going to be a huge, what I don't know if you want to refer to like an albatross against, across his neck. That's what this is. And that's what this is going to be. And so what you do is you have this controversy. So this is where they clued on things were altered in the birth certificate. And so this is what, gave birth to the birther movement is how this controversy happened. But I'm actually, it's one of those things. Do I see a problem with it? No. It's one of those, I would rather somebody be open and honest of who they are and what their feelings are and let you, the citizen, make a decision than to hide it. And then it's kind of like drop the bomb on you later on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one. I don't know if I didn't really do a whole lot on the research part of this, what Reverend Wright and the church that he was part of.
That was another controversy. I let that one go, but there were all these people with these super, super left ties, and we're going to get into a few others. I want to get this out of the way up front. I put it in my notes here. A little bit of insider information. For many, many, many years, I have been the copy editor for Souls, which is the journal of the Research in African American Institute for Research in African American Studies program at Columbia University. So I've read almost every issue going back. And when Obama was president, I was reading every issue. Now they do a lot of their own stuff. That was founded by a man named Dr. Manning Marable. Obama was at Columbia at one point in his schooling. They were very, very disappointed in him after he became president. So first African American president. The African Americans tended to be very disappointed in him. If anything, things got worse for them. So,
it was really interesting. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into like how he came into power, like started the political career.
Oh, we're going to do that
right now.
I just want to say that he went to Columbia U. He transferred with a degree in poli-sci. He attended Harvard Law. He was the first African American president of the Harvard Law Review. Columbia maybe not so much. Harvard is a bastion of some really shady crap. Going all the way back to eugenics and all, Craig. Harvard really produces a lot of evil people. But then, he becomes a community organizer in Chicago, focusing on issues such as job training, education, plight of the homeless, poor, all these kinds of things, which is where he meets Rahm Emanuel.
Yep. Yeah, which came from the Clinton campaign.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say campaign, the machine came from the Clinton machine. He did.
So I'll run him down real quick if you want. Israeli father, American mother. In the early 80s, Emanuel worked on Paul Simon's campaign for Congress, served as senior advisor and finance director for Richard M. Daley, the most corrupt mayor ever. He later joined Bill Clinton's presidential campaign in 92, played a key role in fundraising. So many overlaps with Clinton and, the paternity, Clinton's father. His paternity is a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go as so far to say he was a Rothschild, but here's a guy from rural Arkansas that when he was 16 years old is shaking the hand of John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
So there are these parallels here. Emanuel goes on to serve as senior advisor to Clinton from 93 to 98 and as White House chief of staff from 98 to 99. And he had a reputation, folks, as being a fixer. So if you're grooming this dude who also happens to be from Chicago, who you also happen to know, Rahm Emanuel is a pretty damn good guy to take care of that. Now, what you'll notice tonight is people get rewarded for doing certain things. I found this over and over when it comes to Barack Obama, Craig. Of course, Obama endorsed Emanuel's campaign for mayor of Chicago. That was his big reward. There were rumblings at the time Chicago crime was, Chicago has really declined since he was mayor. But they were talking about trotting out practicing martial law and things like this under Emanuel.
Well, you can see that too. Like what you're just saying is that's the Chicago way. That's Chicago politics. Yeah. And then that's where he cut his teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the training. That is the training ground for this kind of corrupt politics and has been for a long time. And the DNC and Mayor Daley. And it was just terrific. Horrific. Sorry, I'm trying to chat with people in the chat room. And
you're good.
I apologize. So Chicago, I know people who live in Chicago, and it's worse off for Rahm Emanuel being there, just as America, I think, is worse off for having Barack Obama. So he joins a law firm called Sidley Austin, pretty powerful law firm, and he becomes a lecturer on constitutional law at the University of Chicago Law School. If you want to dismantle the Constitution, you got to know how to do it.
And I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the little side notes. I don't know if anybody remembers during when I can't remember if it was right before he got elected or right after, his thing said that the Constitution is a document of negative liberties. And he said this as and the reason is because Constitution tells you what it can't do. He was for a document that would be full of positive, liberties, which is what communist Russia, the USSR had. They had the document saying what the government must do for the people. Well, the reason our document is that way is it is intended to limit the power of the government. That's why it's considered, why. But to him and a lot of people, they looked at it as a negative liberty thing, which is what it exactly is. It's restricting what the government can do. It's supposed to be that way.
Right. So I just want to say there's some very lively discussion in the chat room that doesn't happen that much really under my shows. And I know everybody's going to be respectful, but he's a very polarizing dude. I'll say this. Well, no, I'm going to save it. There's something I'm going to save.
And that's why I said, just like for people to say the show is not about, Barack Obama bad, Barack Obama is good. This is not what this is. This is just the main reason why, especially why this was a sinister mystery, is it's not saying that just Barack himself is sinister. It's just there's a sinister angle in how somebody can come from, like what we're just getting started. He just talked about it. We're talking 94, 95. He's in this law firm. He's doing community organizing. We're just getting ramped up here. Less than 10 years from now, he is going to be a senator in the U.S. Senate. And this, you're talking about, in order to play in this machine in Illinois, you have to backstab, you have to betray, you have to play dirty in order to make it anywhere in Illinois. This is not something that you just walk up one day and I'm running for office and you get elected. That's not how this works.
No. So let's talk about it. Do you want to talk about, he starts as he's community organizer, as he's starting to lecture at the University of Chicago Law School, he becomes close with a professor at the University of Illinois in Chicago, a man named Bill Ayers. You want to talk about that, Craig?
Yeah, that's Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. They are former Weather Underground people. For anybody that doesn't know who the Weather Underground are, this back in the 60s, they bombed police stations. They were on, Bernadine Dorn especially was on the FBI's most wanted list. Yeah, and it said these were basically homegrown terrorists. What people are referring to, like what happened on January 7th type thing, Bernadine Dorn and Bill Ayers were these people. These ones were actually trying to overthrow the man. And so they're doing this. They go through, I mean, we could actually do a show just on the Weather Underground and, what happened to them. I said a bridge version is they basically get away with what they've done. They never really got punished for it. And not only did they not get punished for it, they actually got the left wing actually rewarded them for this. And they became power players to where they're doing Bill Ayers and Bernadine throw basically a cocktail party, an event where who are going to get into here, Alice Palmer, then state senator for that district, introduces now this community organizer. Like I said, this guy that just, he's kind of an up and comer. I'm introducing Barack Obama. This is a guy that I feel could be my successor, right, to this thing. And so I don't know do you want to start there now with how this begins?
I want to interject one thing, because this community organizer who's hanging out with elements of the Weather Underground, and they didn't get away from it except for the 4 or 5 guys who blew themselves up making a bomb, which is they were a splinter group of the Students of a Democratic Society. So all through the civil rights movement, you had a more peaceful track, and you had those that wanted to be militant, and it happened in the African American community, happened in the political community. So that's what they were. So he's got these guys, these reverends, maybe his biological father was a super left-wing kind of activist with communist leanings and all, certainly subversive. Mm-hmm. So word starts to get out to the FBI, to special projects agents about this guy. He's a high-level asset. He's got connections to the CIA. He's got connections to Saudi Arabia, and he's being developed as a political operative. Now, this comes from, you can look it up, an FBI ex-special projects agent called John D'Souza. He was Guy Bannister, all the way back in the days of Hoover and JFK, was the original Special Project X-Files guy at the FBI. John D'Souza inherited the X-Files from this guy. He is a Stephen Greer guy. You got to keep that in mind. But he says that they were tracking this guy using this name, Barry Soetoro, around Mount Shasta, who this operative was. And they didn't know too much about him, but to keep an eye out for him. Well, Maya Soetoro Ning is Barack Obama's maternal half-sister. This is where quickly the Basiago thing comes in, Craig, because he said that he went to this presidential training program with this Barry Soetoro, who was Barack Obama. So he was possibly leading this double life, and we get this name, Barry Soetoro, Soetro, from multiple sources, including an FBI agent, special projects agent. That's pretty interesting. And then it leads in 1995 at the same time to the Alice Palmer controversy, Craig, which I'll hand to you.
Okay. Yeah. So Alice Palmer, like I said, she's state senator. So we just talked about, so she's just, there was a sexual scandal of then congressman of that district that that doesn't really play much into this other than just, typical thing. It's the power play. She's like, I can move up to another position. I'm a well-known senator here in the state circle. So now I'm going to go for this congressional seat. Well, she's going to be running for this. That special election is going to be held on November 28th, 1995. So she's going to run for this. Well, Barak goes to her and says, I would like to run for your seat. And this is how the introduction thing goes. Well, he wants her to assure him that if she loses this special election, that she won't then turn around and run again for a thing. Well, she, the handshake deal. Yeah, I kind of agree. Long story short, what happens is she loses this special election, pretty handily, because you have Jesse Jackson Jr. is who ends up becoming this congressional seat, because obviously civil rights, that then, which I think, if you actually dug into this, I think it was done on purpose, because one of those things, it helps this person move up the power chart. So it's, and but what happens now is, so she loses this, she decides to rerun for her state Senate seat to keep in power. Well, what happens then, there's now 5 candidates that have filed for the primary for this position. So what Barak does is he sends in the couple of sources said operatives. I don't really know if I like that term, there were some, but they use these things, people tied to Obama go to, and it's this state, I'm trying to think, I want to make sure I get the board of directors, the board of directors, what is it? Come on. I had it here. Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Mm-hmm. They go to this hearing in January. And what they do is they basically file petition saying that signatures are wrong. And so they start, and this will start sounding familiar, how things happen during like the Bush-Gore election and all these ones where they're challenging signatures, they go in and they keep going until votes. So what they do is they keep doing all these challenges of the signatures for the petitions of these people to be on the primary. And they end up challenging enough of these that both Alice Palmer and the other candidates are not qualified to be on the ballots. Now, Barack Obama is the only one that's able to be, so he basically now runs unopposed, wins the election, goes up against the Republican challenger who doesn't have a shot, because in this district, this is one, I think, that goes like 95% for the Democrat Party. So he was handed the election at this point in January. Right. So now he's the state senator, and so he's now the Illinois Senate from 1997 to 2004, which now Joey will take you into the thing, because this is how the whole Senate thing comes into play that he was talking about.
There was one thing that fell off my notes that I want to talk about, because it binds, and I'm going to just drop it here in the chat room so that I can read it. Acorn.
Yep.
Which was an organizing group, Association for Community Organizations for Reform Now. Both Rahm Emanuel and Barack Obama were heavily involved with this organization. It was part of their grassroots work. Craig, as they started to move up and away, there were serious allegations of corruption, election fixing, and all that kind of stuff. That loops
shuttling
back,
people in for elections. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that loops back to Alice Palmer and the way, because she went to him and she said, "Can you stand down, please, and not run? I really want my seat back. Like, look what happened to me." And he outright refused. Yeah. So now we're starting to paint this picture. So he's elected to the Illinois State Senate in 1996, and he serves until 2004. In 2003, he announces his candidacy for the U.S. Senate. All right. During that time, I'm sitting at home in a town called Brick, New Jersey. I'm sitting at my computer, and this news comes up on Yahoo or whatever, AOL News, whatever it was, 2003, that says that this Barack Obama was this big hit at the Democratic National Convention in July of 2004, delivering the keynote address. A guy who is currently a state senator in Illinois delivering the keynote, right?
Yeah, just a freshman senator. Like I said, freshman senator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick. I forgot. One of the real dirty things that kind of shows like the mindset is in September 19th, 95. So this is prior to that her losing the election, Obama is quoted, and part of the quote is, "I want to empower disenfranchised citizens."
Yeah.
And then they proceed to go in that, not even 4 months later, ensure that people don't get their voice, they don't get a voice. They make sure that their candidates are not able to be on the ballot, and he wins, thereby disenfranchising.
Yeah. Well, he is the contradiction king, as we're going to continue to show tonight. So Craig, he's not even a first-term senator. He's only just announced his candidacy, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, because in 2004 is because he's not going to be elected until that November. So, like I said, he's not even a U.S. senator at this point.
No, just a state senator. So how the hell does this happen? Well, John Kerry, you remember him? John Kerry took a shine and said, "This guy is the future. We need this guy." That's BS. John Kerry is very much part of the global elite system. They said to him, "You need to do this guy." Craig, we're probably never going to know the truth of exactly why Barack Obama was chosen. That we don't quite know. We've managed to track the path. It's clear that he was chosen, he was groomed, but what was it exactly?
Yeah,
Same thing with Bill Clinton, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, regardless of how you feel, the one thing that you have to credit, he is absolutely charismatic when he talks.
Yeah,
he doesn't drone. Like I said, there's the passion behind his belief, whether you agree with it or not. He's still at least somebody that has the conviction behind what he believes.
right.
And that was the thing, like, and he would portray that, as he said. I mean, yeah, his position would change, but he would sit there. When he would orate to the people, he would captive, because remember the whole fainting things. It was like back to the time of the 60s and the Beatles, people would faint. And it was just, it was actually something to actually watch when he did these speeches, because it was just, he would captivate an audience. And I think that was probably one of the things that was probably one of the clues. I mean, it's a little nod. Hakeem Jeffries, he's a current congressman.
Yeah.
It's Obama-esque,
It
bells
is.
going
and
off.
So was Bobby Jindal down in New Orleans. That didn't work out. So it doesn't always work out. Sometimes these people, they were floating, the girl, oh man, is she from Arkansas? It wasn't Huckabee. I'm sorry. Maybe South Carolina, talking about the border. And they had her do the State of the Union rebuttal, and it totally blew up.
Yep.
They test these people. So anyway, just remember, talking about favors and looping back here, John Kerry succeeded Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State and was very much the architect, I think, Craig. I really paid attention to Secretary of State. First of all, Kissinger groomed all these people. So you need to know that right there. It's the Kissinger world chess game philosophy, and they were all answering to Kissinger and the rest of the board.
Now that you said that, it actually just made me start. I think you have something there, because what is the Secretary of State if not like the head of all ambassadors? Right. They are the ones that are actually like in the forefront of everybody sees the phone call, the president's on the phone call. Well, who arranges that phone call? The secretary, the Secretary of State, office is the one that goes through this. And Lori, I just saw that comment. Yeah, there is a YouTube link. I'll share it
in there right now, Craig.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So now that you said it's because when you're talking about the way Kissinger did it, John Kerry, you just go down the list of secretaries of state. There's one, it's just, I think some of them aren't as much of a power broker as other ones are, because definitely they broke the mold to Kissinger.
Yeah.
He was one, but Hillary Clinton definitely was, she was power hungry too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
we're going to talk about her.
Yeah.
As my son would say, pick a lane. Madeleine Albright was another one. I wanted to make sure I got the facts straight. Mm-hmm. She was another Kissinger puppet. And then we have, who's Sec State now? Anthony Blinken, right?
Yeah, he's more of the ones. He's kind of like thing. I don't think he's a power broker at all. I think he's a yes man that's doing what he's told.
But yes, because he has ties to Robert Maxwell through his father.
I think I hate to say it this way. I think he's a useful idiot.
Yeah.
In this, in this
especially
one.
for Israel. Yeah, that was his job, Israel. Right.
Yeah.
So they have their things. So November 2004, of course, he wins the U.S. Senate election. Bipartisan efforts, advocacy. He did play the bipartisan thing much better than Trump did, much better than Biden managed to. He serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. He serves on the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. These are pretty powerful committees for a first-term senator. Arguably.
You don't get these prime locations. I mean, it's like there's one. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, or anybody in the audience has ever heard of this. Do you know that there's a price chart? That there's actually a pay to play. It's kind of like a there's actually it was leaked that there's actually one of those things. We're going to call it a donation that you make to kind of help ensure that you pay your dues so that way you can kind of move up the selection committee. And some of these committee assignments are rewards for your behavior with the party and towing the line. You don't just come walking through the door and saying, "Hey, come over here," and you're going to get the prime one that the senator or the congressman that's been there for 12 years wants. Right. You don't just suddenly leap that. So like you said, once again, here's another feather in the cap of he knows somebody. Somebody knows somebody that's pulled the strings and said, "I don't care. He is going to be here because he needs to make sure that this is present at all times."
Yeah. And this reminds me of Kennedy, who was groomed through his father. Yep. It was decided when he was in the Navy. When he went to the Naval Academy, it was decided that John F. Kennedy Jr. was going to be president, with his father pulling the strings along with his buddy. So February 10th, 2007, he announces his candidacy for the Democratic nomination for president in Springfield. Craig, I don't know where the fact fiction, they just came out with this Kona Blue UFO reverse engineering program. The story broke March 8th, and now it's back in the news cycle today. I think because Tim Burchett got so pissed off yesterday and said these defense contractors are arrogant, everything's so compartmentalized, we'll never know the truth. I fall asleep in these closed-door hearings because they won't tell us anything. What was Basiago talking about? He's talking about Clinton being chosen way ahead of time for president. He's talking about Obama being chosen way ahead of time. But then he talks about Mars. It's like the project.
He was all over the place.
Yeah, are they metaphors? Is it a way to get some truth out there, but to put it in ridiculous terms, like Ancient Aliens?
Yeah, it's
weird.
Sorry, people. I don't know what's going on with my lights. It's like I've got a huge spotlight on my face. I don't understand what's going on here. So don't mind me. I'm an ADD squirrel over here.
Yeah. Let's see. What did Charles say? When JFK's elder brother died, he got the opening to the crown princeship. Yeah, exactly right. There was a lot of that going on. So the Democratic primaries, he faces off against Hillary Clinton. This whole group is very interesting. Trump was very, very much friends with the Clintons, but then they have to play like they hate each other. But let's remember, going back to the birther controversy, Craig, Trump jumped right on board with that. That was his entree into American politics in a way. I think he did it on behalf of the Clintons.
Yeah, and it was low-hanging fruit. I mean, it was definitely something that was super easy to, it's like it's that, like Trump does anyway. He likes those really quick quips. If he can get something, it was. I mean, I almost liken it to what happened to Dan Rather. He could not resist that fake document of George W. Bush. It was that confirmation bias. It was so perfect. Like this birther thing, it's so perfect. It is dirt. I've got this thing. I can just throw that thing out there. Well, you're like, it's not really that. It's not really the thing. It's just like we talked at the beginning. no matter who, I don't care what it is. You're born to an American citizen. You're an American. I go, that thing should never even gone anywhere. I don't understand how that even got legs, even from the Clinton campaign.
Yeah. No, but it pushed these guys forward. And like Charles is saying, the second best way to lie is to tell the exact truth so unconvincingly that no one believes it. So there were issues with his paternity, so you dress it up in something ridiculous. It's what they do on Ancient Aliens. Because the guys are, with the exception of our dear friend Reverend Carter, there's a bunch of kooks on Ancient Aliens. And that's why a lot of that information is allowed to get out, because it's being delivered by kooks. So you have to take it tongue in cheek.
I don't want to jump ahead here, like I said, but based off that thing, one of the people that was one of the czars during Obama presidency, that's one of the things that they did a little thing. And as we get up to that point, I'll retouch on this. Obama's one of the biggest things that they did wrong was they peeled back the curtain and we got to see who the wizard really was.
Yeah.
And that was their mistake. They got so arrogant that they actually allowed you, me, everybody in the audience, you actually got to see how the inner workings of these things happened. And that was the problem, because what we used to think was, hey, if we vote for our congressman, we're going to make a change. Well, we suddenly found out that it has nothing to do with Bob, Jane, whoever's elected. It has to do with who's the director of the EPA that makes a regulation. And these regulations are actually the laws that change and affect our very life. And those aren't governed by Congress. Those are ones you see Congress, they'll go, all right, we confirm Bob is the director of blah, blah, Homeland Security. Right. Well, the Homeland Security is the one that's making the regulation that determines whether or not you can get on a plane.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that we're moving into his presidency, there was a lot of that kind of stuff. There was a lot of dismantling and movement, a lot of damage that was done. I will tell you, when Obama and Hillary Clinton were on the ballot in West Virginia for the presidential nomination, a write-in felon in the University of Texas prison system won the primary against those two.
I know.
Just a little factoid. Just a little factoid there. So yeah,
I have a pen nominated, and I have a phone. It's up to you which one I use.
Yep. So he chooses Joe Biden as his running mate. Why? This is the friend of the banks. Because 2008 just happened, and now the banks are resetting, and they're setting their stuff, and that's why he brings in Joe Biden. Because look, folks, Joe Biden is stupid. He's inarticulate. He was exposed as a U.S. senator of plagiarizing other people's speeches. The guy was not electable. He should never be in the White House. He ran over and over, and everybody laughed at him. But he's from Delaware. It's the banking capital of the United States, and so that's why he was brought in. It wasn't for demographics, right? This is the trend that we see.
Yeah, he was literally, like you said, he was a friend of this industry, that he had them, and it was his political connections. It was his connections in the machine. And that's the same reason why he, like this last election, is that you can see he is connected to the machine, which is why, because that's Trump's term, things went off the rails. Biden gets elected, you notice it's right back on track. The machine's right back on track, chugging along like it was supposed to be. And that's why he was brought in. It wasn't anything like, well, we got to keep this guy under check. It's like, no, he was used strictly for that purpose, and he served the purpose.
Right. He was a facilitator, and he's still serving a purpose, just a different purpose. So he wins, right? He runs against Republican nominee John McCain, who didn't really have a snowball's chance in hell. It was all friggin' fixed. First African-American president. And I will say this, Craig, I disagreed with his policies. I didn't trust him. I knew he was bought and sold the night he gave the DNC space. And people, right? Keep in mind, I was running a social justice theater company and art and education school. And anytime I disagreed with Barack Obama, it was, oh, you're prejudiced. Obviously, you're prejudiced.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because you remember
to be able to play.
Do you remember the arrest of the professor?
Yeah,
I think it was the Columbia, and how he handled that.
Yep.
That was at the moment. I told people where here you can see who he really is. Like you said, he tried to mask it, but he would still tell you who exactly he was. Prior to his election, we were actually looking at a generation that was going to be one of the least, focused on race that we've ever had. Barak gets the thing. Not only did he not capitalize on that, they rolled back to where it was actually the device. That's when we really start seeing the divisive thing. Break them apart, split them apart, make sure that you cause those divisions so that way they're infighting and we can just do whatever we want. Because all I'm going to say, like you said, we have the first Black president in the history of the United States. How do you not go to every inner city and say, what are you guys doing? Look, this is what you can achieve. I just became president of the United States. Why do you feel like you can't achieve anything? Look where I came from, a poor Black man in Hawaii. Right. And now I'm president of the United States. If I can do it, you can do it. That's what should have been his message in every community. That never happened.
No,
it was all like, you don't have a chance, things are stacked against you. And I'm like, it was a complete opposite of how he should have done this. And I've never understood it. Yeah. I never understood, now I do understand it. But at that time, I was just like, I couldn't figure out why you would not use this message for unity, but instead just making sure that you kept driving that wedge in between people. Right. But now like I said, now it makes sense.
Right. So I just want to say to Maria that we're going to discuss Agenda 15 and Agenda 2030, because that's exactly right what you're saying. King here says he was the first Black president, but didn't do anything for the Black people. Right at the start or earlier in the show, I talked about the Institute for African American Studies at Columbia University, Dr. Manning Marable. They were extremely disappointed. And a few people in the audience remarked that he was only, half African American. Regardless, it's not both ways. Nobody said he's the first half African American president. He was the first African American president. So regardless of who his father was. So everybody's talking about the electric cars. There's a lot more. There's a lot more at stake through all of that. So Craig, let's talk about
King. That was to buy votes, by the way. The Obama phones.
Oh, right.
That one was. You want to talk about something that skirted legal issues? Yeah. That was one right there. That was basically you were buying votes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what was I going to say? Oh, kind of like forgiving student debt to make sure they vote for you.
Yep.
That's another card from the same deck, right? So April 2009, on the heels of the financial disaster, which was really a reset, we got to consolidate. We got to get rid of some of these guys. Really, the only people that lost were the American people. The people who woke up and their savings were gone and their retirement accounts were gone, right? But April 2009, he puts out credit card reform. And he does it, and he says, but it's not going to be active for several months. So if the banks want to do anything to screw the American public, you better do it in the next 3 months. Yeah. I'm going to say to you, my credit score right now is higher than it was. It's always been pretty high, thank God. My credit score is higher now than it was in 2009. My credit cards prior to the credit card reform were between 9 and 11% interest. They are now between 15 and 20%. And some people are paying up to 29, 30%. So it was all bull crap under his watch with Big Bank Joe at the helm.
Well, and that's Joseph's thing too. That's kind of where one of the things too, it's like, yes, the stimulus check, on the surface, it looked like this is going to help. This is going to do these things, these buybacks. One of the things that he did, I don't know if you guys remember this. Remember when they put in the CAFE standards for cars to where you had to have car makers had to better fuel mileage. They had to do these things. and everybody got that credit. If you turned in your used car, you got this credit. Well, what did this do? When you turned in that car, they couldn't resell the car. It had to be destroyed. So what we're suffering now is the lack of used cars on the market.
Yeah.
This is one of the effects of that.
Half the time.
Yeah, and the special, electric cars, you have these issues coming up, and the stimulus checks. For anybody that wants to know why we're having inflation right now, that we are suffering from what happened. Now we are, as Reverend Wright said, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yep.
And that's what's happening is right now. It's everybody was like, I got my Obama money, I got all this cash. Well, they didn't think of, nobody cared about the next time. It was about the now.
Yeah.
And that was what a lot of his presidency was. It was about the now. It wasn't about, what's going to happen afterwards. It's now. We're going to do this now.
Yeah. In about a month, guys, we're going to tackle transhumanism, and it's this science populism, the climate change stuff that's being taken too far, the whole EV vehicles, so much of this is so illogical. Let's see here, brother. So another thing that happened in 2009, this is why I call him the king of contradictions. He gets the Nobel Peace Prize for, quote unquote, extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples. He then goes on during his 2 terms to order 500 plus drone strikes with 3,700 plus deaths, 10% of which are civilians.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got a Nobel Peace Prize on his mantle.
And hearing that before he was even took the oath of office. He was awarded that. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the, all you have to do is just start lining, you get the red strings, you start doing all the connections. You're like, how do you win a Nobel Peace Prize before you've even done the work?
Yeah.
It does. All you can do is just shake your head and, wipe a tear.
Yeah, and Trump is eating chocolate cake and watching Mega Bomb fall and going, oh, that's pretty cool. Give me a reason to do it again. But he didn't order anywhere near the number of drone strikes. Nowhere near the number of drone strikes as Mr. Nobel Peace Prize. So then, I know I'm getting wound up, but a lot of stuff happened during his presidency that really hurt people like myself and my family. So then there was the Obamacare mandate, right? Where Justice Roberts pushes it through on a commerce technicality and then hangs out on an island because he knew damn well it was BS, right? And Craig, and what did they tell us? We need the mandate or else the whole thing is going to fall apart. Well, Trump got rid of the mandate and the whole thing didn't fall apart. So that was a lie. I'm going to tell you folks something. During that mandate, I could not afford health insurance for my family. I was living in North Carolina. I was making pretty darn good money. So they wanted almost $8,000 a year, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they were the only choice in North Carolina with a $13,000 deductible. They wanted $20,000, Craig, of my money before I saw any benefits.
Yeah.
So we didn't have it. Tanya had her hysterectomy, which cost us $40,000, which is almost paid off. And we were fined 2 tax years for not having health insurance. So on top of the $37,000 for the hysterectomy, I had to pay $2,400 in penalties.
Yeah, which is it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, and the crazy thing about that Obamacare thing too is, and a lot of people don't understand this. This was done in partnership with the health insurance companies.
Yeah,
everybody thought it was to fight them. And if for anybody that doesn't remember, does anybody like in the audience, do you guys remember the photographs of when they would wheel in the cart all the stack of papers? That was that Healthcare Act. All right. For anybody that doesn't really pay attention to this stuff, there is no way a document that size, Joey's a writer, there's no way you craft over 2,000 pages, just in a couple of days' time. This was already done, waiting for it to be rolled out. This was not something that they just came up with the idea and like, all right, hey, let's go get to work on this. No, it was done. It was just waiting to be revealed. And they're waiting for it to be the perfect time. Here's the rollout. It had already been crafted and it had already been worked. All the deals have been worked out. They were just waiting for the right person to roll it out. And in comes Barack Obama. Boom.
And that is now du jour, right? You get 2,000 pages of gibberish delivered to everybody 5 hours before they're going to vote on it.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, here, you can read it. Yeah. I challenge this is like this. I would challenge anybody to read this book of mine in the next 5 hours. You can't do it. And the thing is like 200 of these. Yeah. And you're supposed to read that in even if they gave you like 3 days, how are you supposed to read that?
Right. You see this, Craig? This person got banned from a channel tonight for saying they don't approve of Obamacare.
Oh, really? Which channel? Who was that?
It's up here on the screen. Do you see it? I put it up on the screen. Yeah. I got banned
from Disclosure Tonight channel for saying so. There must have been somebody in the channel that that popped
the moderator, whatever.
Yeah, it's and that was the thing. It's like for a lot of people, it's because we mentioned Rahm Emanuel in the beginning. He was the one that entered into the lexicon. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
That's right.
And his thing, and he put on, what I mean by that is, it's an opportunity to do things that you could not do before. This is the Overton window. This is literally, you could take whatever. It's like you need a new car. So you come up to Tanya and say, Tanya, I'm going to buy the new Corvette. Whoa, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. It's like, but I need a new car. I want the Corvette. Well, let's go look at these things. And what about this car? Well, you just got your new car. What you did is you threw something out so outlandish, so crazy that what you really want now seems like a perfect, reasonable choice.
Right.
And that's how you get stuff like the Affordable Care Act. It was something that it was thrown out there so outlandish that everybody's just like, oh my God, no way. To then when this comes out, they're like, okay, who's going to agree to something? Like you were talking about debt. Who's going to sign a paperwork? You go there for a loan and they say, well, you'll find out the terms after you sign it. Right. Remember Nancy Pelosi? We'll find out what's in the bill after we pass it.
Yeah.
Who at what point was that a great idea to sign on that document? And nobody would do it. Nobody in the audience that I know of would sign a paper if they went up to a loan officer and said, well, we'll tell you the terms after you sign the paperwork.
Yeah. Well, we're very glad to hear that your aunt came through despite that lack of cooperation. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to go too far sideways, Craig. I'm sure we'll look at it with Agenda 30, but that Overton window stuff is, I think that's what's going to happen to push everybody to digital currency. I think that's why they've run up, right? We've got record credit card debt in this country. So then you can start bargaining with people. We'll convert 50% of your debt or make 50% go away if you agree to go to our digital coin. And that's going to go right into the digital ID and it's going to go right into the social credit score.
And it's not too far off because that's one of the things that happened under Obama's presidency was quantitative easing.
Yeah, there you go.
And that was one of the things for anybody that doesn't know what that is. This is basically you take a piece of paper, you write, I have $10,000. You put it in your other hand and put it in your pocket and now go spend money like you have $10,000.
Yeah.
And that's what the quantitative easing was, is the federal government was basically printing money through the Fed and buying US treasuries, which is the way that the government raises money. So we were buying our treasuries with money that we were printing.
Right.
And that's why we have inflation going out of control, is because we have this, this happened, just like Joey said, I think this was done intentionally. This was done for the simple point of, one of the things that happened during his presidency is they talked about bringing up the standards, with the world. Well, there's only one way to do it. You can't bring the world up to the American life standard. There's no way we can do that. So the only way that you can level the playing field is by knocking down the ones on top down, therefore making it feel like it's even. And that's the way you topple that is, the US is, like I said, if you do, and that's where like a lot of his things, and you started seeing these things, it was through self-regulation.
Yeah.
If you, like where we talked about the cars, I can't take your vehicle from you. You will not give that up freely. But if I give you an incentive, if I give you a check and tell you, it would be great if you went for this car and went here and got just like the Overton Window, now you bought the electric car. Now you bought these things that we bailed out GM. Now you're buying the Volt. Now you're buying these cars that we wanted you to buy anyway. And now you've done it on your own. We're going to use quotes, free will.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things, and this is kind of where the sinister, part of this mystery comes in. It's just, you can see he was definitely following a plan. There was a plan to move these things along, and they hit at so many fronts all at the same time. Unless you are like diehard watching this thing 24/7, you really can't keep up. Because I can guarantee you there's some people watching this thing. We've talked about things that they either didn't realize or hadn't even thought about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to, before we wrap up here, just a couple of things. Of course, Benghazi was under Obama and Hillary Clinton, September 11th, 2012.
Who knows what Benghazi was about?
It seems to be the most that I could find. I started digging. U.S. government covert arms transfers between Libya to Syria via Turkey. That's what I came up with.
And that
that
the ambassador
arms transfers.
Well, yeah, because the ambassador was meeting a Turkish general in that consulate, doing the thing when things went south. And the reason why Hillary Clinton and Obama administration would not do anything about it is we cannot get caught, a la Iran-Contra affair. We can't get caught running weapons to a terrorist organization in Syria, because this organization was doing the proxy fight against Russia and the Syrian regime. And so they were doing our bidding, fighting as we always do, but we couldn't get our hand caught in the cookie jar. And so that was one of those things. So that's where, when you see these things, so many things got exposed during this administration. We could talk about Libya, why Gaddafi was killed.
Right.
Because he was actually getting ready to break Libya off of the world economic he was going to take them off of the money tit.
Yeah.
He was actually going to break free and be an independent from the thing. They can't have that. You cannot have a power, somebody that's not on the team. And so he was taken out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was exactly it. So the stand down order preventing military assistance, she misled it by attributing the attack to spontaneous protests sparked by an anti-Islam video. There was a weird lack
that nobody
of security.
Saw.
Yeah, so it goes on and on. So Charles says we have the pedigrees of the puppets, but who are the puppeteers? I really think, and Reverend Carter alluded to this last week, it really is these ancient families who are convinced that they have like these ancient bloodlines, and they're tentacled, they're leviathaned, octopused through the entire system. I do think it goes back to them, and I think too that Project Paperclip, bringing the Nazis over, World Economic Forum. We've talked about this, so we'll talk about it again. 2012, he beats Governor Mitt Romney, who was a very moderate Republican, but needed to find a place to run for president on the spectrum of candidates. So he's about trustworthy as nothing. Also, Romney's father, right, Craig?
Well, you want the conspiracy on this one is he was basically told to stand down.
Yeah.
Because he was actually winning.
Yeah.
After that second debate, it was basically like Muhammad Ali. He wrote rope-a-dope. He actually rocked Barack Obama. He was actually he was actually starting to, all he had to do in the third debate was he basically just had to tread water. He was really making progress. And then all of a sudden people were like, why isn't he doing, and he just started. And that's one of the things is he was basically told it's in your best interest that this does not, and so he backed off. And then I was, because how does this guy suddenly go fall out of favor like everybody else does? They kind of go off into obscurity. How does he suddenly become, senator, keep moving on, moving along? It's because he was rewarded for being a good soldier.
Right. That's exactly it. And I know we're going a little long tonight, but not too bad. No,
we're good.
It also reminds me, Craig, of Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, running for re-election and then just kind of giving up the ghost in the middle of the campaign. And Clinton just running away. I don't think anybody told Bush what to do. I think he was one of the most powerful men in the world. And he knew where the bodies were buried. He knew where the saucers were hidden. He knew everything. But I think it made more sense geopolitically for it to happen. Either that or the only reason let me put it this way. Maybe the only reason he ran was that he could make sure to be beaten. Throw in the fight.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing, because it's one of those, show my nerd thing with Star Wars, strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Better to do
now
in the shadows.
Yeah. Now you're back, you've made me more connections, and now you're off, you're not as, Obama, like we talked about, he's behind the scenes, but he's there, because how many former presidents are continuously showing up at the White House?
He is the only modern president to not leave Washington, D.C.
Yeah. He hasn't. Yeah. He hasn't gone back. He hasn't done like Bush is on the ranch. Everybody else had just kind of, went to their own thing. No, he's actively there. And so, it's like, he never went away.
So here's the quote. Thanks for the setup. December 1st, 2020, he's on the Stephen Colbert show. And he says this: if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or a front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through stuff, then deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking, I'd be fine with that. I think that's what he's doing.
Cue Joe Biden.
Yeah. Yeah. Who was in his basement running his campaign. Yeah. I have just a couple more things, Craig. The 2020-21 abandonment of Afghanistan, including the weapons. Go back to that John D'Souza who said they were tracking Obama in the 90s as being a foreign agent. That was Obama's MO throughout his presidency. He runs it country by country. We would go into countries where we didn't need to be there, and then we would leave, and we would leave shit there. Yeah. So this is a pattern. The last thing that I have is that the Obamas, and this I think is also unprecedented, were executive producers of the predictive programming specialty piece, Leave the World Behind.
Yeah. Yeah, they, and it's kind of one of those things. It was there's not many, like you said, when you go to they always kind of do their little side projects, but this one you can see they are on the forefront of the social engineering. Like you said, leave the world behind. They're doing, like you said, they're doing these things to just kind of like, they're nudging. I mean, it's not really subtle if you're following it. We'll talk about it in a couple episodes here. The 2030 agenda. Yeah, leave the world behind. A lot of that's in there.
Yeah. Craig, a little on-air scheduling here. We actually have transhumanism on May 2nd and Agenda 30 on May 16th, but I would like to switch them. I really think we should follow tonight up with Agenda 30.
Sure.
Sound good?
Yep.
Yeah, let's present that, and then the ramifications of Agenda 30 are really this transhumanism thing, which is sick. It's just sick. It's like this weird hatred of the human race, which makes no sense to me. let's become cyborgs, let's become robots.
What
It's so weird.
It's one of those. I've talked about this several times with some people too. It's like it's the true double-edged sword. It's like you can see how it has amazing benefits, like implants. I mean, who doesn't think it would be amazing if your loved one has Parkinson's? Like take Michael J. Fox, that you can suddenly put an implant in there and bam, Marty McFly is back. He could do the act. He's back. He's normal. He's great. And it's like, you're like, okay, this is amazing stuff. But then you realize you're actually, now you're beholden to somebody in the other end could shut you down at any moment, simply through a hack, through the thing. You have the same with these benefits. And then you realize, what if somebody decides to, on a nefarious side, actually use you in something you wouldn't have any control? You would actually, at that point, zombie, type thing. You would be in these things. And that's one of the things that, like, when we're getting transhumanism, because I can see these things. I mean, who doesn't want to live forever? You can download yourself into this device, and you're now, Joey Bot 3.0, is going around, and you get to talk to him forever. But at the same point, they said, so this could be a fun talk.
It's good. Yeah, it's important. Thank you all. I really appreciate you all coming. Like I said in the chat room, I'll say it on air too. Thanks for the 3B Beard crew for coming out and joining us. I hope you'll keep showing up. We'll keep trying to work hard for you.
Follow and subscribe and that thing.
ERT Radio. You can watch our shows on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. and after my show, because it runs a little long. I don't know how that goes, but thank you all, folks. I appreciate it. And Craig, I appreciate you deeply. So I'll see you in 2 weeks for.
I get no raise.
Still no raise. That's funny. All right, guys. Everybody. Take care. Be well. Stay safe. Keep your eyes open. Trust nothing except this show.
Trust but verify.
Do your homework.